Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this week's video I thought I would cover the Union Pacific Challenger by Smokebox. This is a very well done locomotive add-on for Train Simulator Classic that's only just been released about a week or so ago as of me making this video. So it's been a little while since I've had a add-on or a mod by Smokebox on my channel. I did cover the FEF3 locomotive that he released quite a few years ago now on this channel, and I did take that locomotive up the incline from Sherman Hill on the Sherman Hill map. So here I am again with another locomotive of his, and this is the Challenger. So we can see here this thing is just absolutely breathtaking. If you're a steam locomotive or locomotive nut or enthusiast in general, I think you'll appreciate the amount of detail and work and effort that's gone into building this locomotive. Okay, so what we're going to be doing in this video today is we're going to be focusing on just how to drive and fire this locomotive manually. Okay, I could spend many hours actually going over every single feature of this locomotive, and maybe we can do that in another video. But for this video, what we'll be doing is we'll be going from we'll be going from Cheyenne over to Laramie. We're not going to be going all the way though. What we're going to be doing in this video is just going to the top of Sherman Hill. Okay, there's a little sign, I guess, that tells you when you reach the highest elevation there, and we're going to be trying to make it all the way to the top of Sherman Hill with this locomotive and this train that's behind us. So we've got 10 passenger cars, we've got a nice caboose there as well, as you can see on the screen, and we've also got a baggage car. So we've got 12 cars in total behind us and a combined weight of around just over 1,000 tons. So nowhere near the actual rated capacity, pulling capacity of this locomotive. These things have been known to do well over 3,000 tons, but it should still be a good challenge today. So hopefully you'll settle in and enjoy this video. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, so I apologize for that, but hopefully you'll learn quite a few things, especially if you are looking at driving this locomotive manually, and hopefully I don't make too many mistakes today. Okay, so we're just inside the cab here, and I've just gone ahead and opened up the firebox. Now the firebox on this thing is a real beast as well. It's huge. Okay, no human being can ever hope to even shovel any coal into that and maintain the fire that this thing needs. So that's why it has a automatic coal feeding system. Okay, and we'll go through that. There's a bunch of steam valves here that control that, and you've also got the Stoker operating valve as well, which basically operates a huge corkscrew or auger, or I call it a bit of a coffee grinder. It pushes the coal under the floor towards the manifolds, and basically from there these jets or these valves here, which you can adjust, shoot the coal into the firebox. Okay, so like I said, no shoveling here. So adjustment of those jets there, those little valves, will affect how far the coal gets shot into the firebox, and it affects the distribution of coal. Everything is done by a machine basically, but you can have full control over how the coal gets fed, how much coal gets fed, where it gets placed, because that's also very important as well, and that's simulated. If you fire the locomotive and put the coal uneven in the firebox, you'll actually have piles of coal in one corner, and that will actually affect your steam generation capability. So we've got the blower here which we can turn on, and you can see how that makes a difference to the fire as well. And you can see if we hop outside that you can see the smoke is actually affecting that as well. So you can see how the smoke's just been blowing up there with the blower on all the way. Okay, we don't really need that right now because we've got heaps and heaps of steam, so we're blowing off our relief valve there. So let's just go ahead and close off the blower. With the blower closed, you can see the coal's a little bit better as well. Okay, so we've got our water gauges here, we've got our gauge blowdown valve, and we've got our water column blowdown valve. So you've got one set there, and you've got the other set of valves for the other gauge as well. You've got the column and the gauge blowdown valve. So you do need to blow down the gauges and the water column frequently, otherwise they get clogged up. Just showing here the steam injector as well. That's the exhaust injector. We'll go through that a little bit more in a sec. Might as well just show it now actually. So what I do to inject water into the boiler, I open the valve about to the setting of 4, and then we pull that handle about halfway until the spill light comes on. So I'm just going to do that now before we get underway, because otherwise we'll forget, or I'll forget. So pull it out halfway, wait for the spill light to come on. Spill light's on. You'll hear a little sort of a jet turbine sound in the background there. That's your exhaust injector gauge, so you'll watch that light up in just a second, and there we go. So just pull out the handle. So that's basically how to start the injector. Now you can wind out, I'm just showing there, the injector valve to about 8 or more while you're running if you need more water, and we'll be doing that during the run as well. Just depends on your water demands. Okay, so we can see there the fire mass I'm just showing as well. We're at about 4,300 pounds of coal at the moment. So just real quick, the way that you run this locomotive is you just watch the boiler gauge. When it starts to drop, rather than looking at the fire mass on the head-up display, you just look at the boiler pressure. Once the boiler pressure starts to drop, you just unwind or turn this to anti-clockwise, the Stoker operating valve, until the Stoker starts up, okay? And you'll see that you want about 25 psi of pressure on the Stoker gauge, no more than that. And here's the main jet valve, and the jet valves down there as well. We'll go through all this in a bit more detail as we start to run, but whistle, and we'll start moving this thing out of the station. And I'm going to or just open the cylinder cocks there, or the cylinder drains as they are also called. We've got our locomotive brake set on at the moment. Our train brake is released according to those gauges, at least as far as I can see. We'll just set it to running, and then we'll go ahead and release the locomotive brake. But first we'll make sure the reverser is all the way forward. Okay, let's just get onto the throttle slightly and then release our locomotive brake at the same time. And there you see that red needle just drop there. Move it back to running. So we've got, there we go. So it should be fully released now. Got our cylinder drains open, so we're just expelling a little bit of steam there. And here comes the first chuff. So this is a 4-cylinder locomotive, so it's a articulated steam locomotive. It's an absolute beast. There's nothing quite like what the Americans used to do in the 40s there. Around the World War II era, these locomotives were something else indeed. So you don't really see anything like this anymore. You can see here that we are increasing speed, and we're not on a grade just yet. We're only just leaving the Cheyenne station, so we'll give it a few more pumps, a few more chuffs, and then we'll close up those cylinder cocks. And I'll just increase the throttle a little bit more here. Okay, so the other gauge that we want to watch is the cylinder back pressure gauge. Now this is a indication of basically the overall power that you're putting out at the moment. So you don't want to go past about 15, and 15 indicates pretty much the maximum tractive effort. So I'm just showing there, anywhere between about 5 and 15 is a good setting on your cylinder back pressure gauge. Okay, so go through that all in the more detail as well, so don't worry if what I'm talking about right now seems like it's all Greek. Hopefully you'll gain a lot out of this video. You can see there, as you increase the throttle, the back pressure gauge goes off the chart there a bit, past 15. You don't want it to be past 15 for too long, because that's when you start to waste fuel. Okay, you're not putting out any additional power if you're above 15 on your back pressure gauge. So like I said, 15 is the maximum tractive effort of the locomotive, so we want to keep it somewhere between 5 and 15. Okay, so you reduce the reverser or the throttle to keep the back pressure gauge within limits. Okay, and what I'm going to do during this video as well is just going to try and look out for these crossings, make sure that I blow the whistle and all that kind of jazz. And you can see here we've taken a little bit of a bite out of our boiler pressure already, just with all this accelerating that we've been doing. So we just need to be careful there. You can see the boiler pressure is beginning to drop. We're not going to add any fire just yet, any more coal, because we've got enough coal in the firebox for the moment. So we'll just keep on chuffing along. I'm mindful that the speed limit is 35 through here, and we're at 33 already. So just back off the throttle there for a sec and just coast for a bit. Because we're on level ground, this thing does pick up speed fairly quickly actually, considering it's quite a heavy train. there's a lot of power behind, or there's a lot of power in this boiler, as you'll see. But with this locomotive, at least, you do run a higher reverser setting when you're underway. So having the reverser at 60% or more and full throttle is not unheard of with this locomotive. Okay, so we've got our 0.8% grade now, so we're almost out of Cheyenne. Let's just get back onto the throttle a little bit here, and we can watch our cylinder back pressure gauge increase again. When it hovers around the 4 or 5 mark, like it's doing right now, it's really not putting out that much power. Yeah, I really should have gotten onto that bell before. But anyway, there's a lot going on right now, and here we are, we're leaving Cheyenne. I was going to say, we're actually doing the work of 2 people here, because we're trying to fire the locomotive as well as drive it at the same time. So normally this is the job of 2 people, and obviously I'm trying to do everything at once here. I'm trying to drive this thing and make sure that I look at the road ahead, as well as make sure that we've got enough fire and coal and all that kind of stuff. So just turn that bell off. And this other lever here is the first service cutout, okay? So if you've got passenger cars behind you, you want to cut that out, basically, that little lever, okay? So it's facing horizontal. With that cutout, it means you don't get that first service setting on your brake. That means that your brakes come on a little bit more abruptly, but that's fine, okay? If you've got a long freight train, then you want to cut it in, okay? And then you get a more gradual application of the brake. Just going to turn down the exhaust injector there, because our water level, we're injecting water way too fast at the moment. I'm just going to do a little blow down here. So we do a blow down on both gauges. We can see there, the top of the water gauge is actually there. There's not actually all the way at the top of the fitting there. And so yeah, you can cause a lot of damage by overfilling the boiler with too much water, and it will show a warning if you do that as well. So I'll do my best not to cause that condition from happening today. Got a nice straight section of track ahead of us now, and the other thing to just be mindful of is your smoke color as you're driving this thing. You want a nice light gray smoke. Just having a look at our boiler pressure there, you can see that it's well within check there, and we can see that we're putting out about 5 on the back pressure. So yeah, basically you just have to watch your boiler pressure like a hawk, really, and don't worry too much about your fire mass. What I'm doing here is I'm just going to start up the auger. So let's just go ahead and do that. That's our massive corkscrew under the floor. So just turn our Stoker operating valve anti-clockwise, and you'll see that little yellow or beige needle begin to sort of pulsate, and the pulsations of that needle basically tell you how fast that corkscrew is turning, okay? So that corkscrew is moving all that chunks of coal towards the firebox, but as you can see, nothing's been flung into it yet, because we need to turn on the jet, okay, the Stoker jets. So we need to open the jet valves, okay, and I've been doing quite a bit of experimenting with these jet valves, and there's quite a bit of a science behind that. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail. I'm going to show you the setting that I use that results in more or less the best distribution of coal that I've managed to get so far, okay. I'll detail that more soon, but okay, so once you've set up your valves, you go ahead and open the Stoker valve, the main valve, the jet valve I should say, and I like to keep it around between 150 and 200. If it's less than 100, your coal won't be shot far enough, because it's coming from the very back of the firebox being flung to the far end. So you need your jet pressure to be high enough to fling it as far as you can, basically. Okay, so anyway, we'll go through that in more detail soon as well. Just watching the road and watching our boiler pressure, you can see that our boiler pressure's come down a bit, and we are putting out constant power there. So yeah, it's a good thing we turned on our coal feeding system, and we can see those coals getting flung into the firebox. We should start to see some recovery on our you can see there we've got our Stoker operating valve at around 20 psi. You don't want to go higher than about 25 on that beige needle, okay? And we can see the boiler pressure there is recovering, and you can see it's actually coming back up to around 270, which is, or around 275-ish is the limit, okay? So our auger's probably putting on too much coal at the moment, so because our pressure is increasing rather fast for our current throttle setting. So I've just turned down the auger, because we're going to hit the steam relief valves again in just a second. So we might even have to turn off the coal again, because we're currently not demanding too much from the firebox. Okay, and just checking for any piles there. We're looking pretty even at the moment. Whistle time. Got another crossing coming up. I'm trying my best to keep on top of those crossings. Okay, so let's have a look at how fast we're going. 32 miles an hour. I didn't actually say this in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to try and keep this train running at around 30 miles an hour consistently in this video, even as the incline kind of increases there. So as we start to go up the hill, I'm going to see if we can keep it as close as possible to 30 miles an hour. Okay, just a nice consistent run today. Just passing through, crossing there. Everything's looking rather good, but yeah, I must say we haven't hit the biggest part of the hill yet, so we're going to really have to start turning on the cold generation in a little bit. Watching your boiler pressure gauge is the best strategy here, like I said before as well. Okay, just keep a constant eye on that all the time. Okay, so 1% grade now, so we're starting to go up the hill a bit more. We're going to end up at a 1.5% grade actually, once we get to the really hard part of the grade, and that grade is just going to persist. Okay, so it's going to be a real test. Alright, and we can see our steam relief valves are actually blowing off, so we've got a huge reserve of steam right now. So everything's looking nice and dandy. I think the trick with this locomotive though, as far as I like to do, is not to have those water steam valves blow off too often. So we've still got our auger running. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to completely turn that off for the moment, okay? Because we are bouncing off our steam limiting valves, our steam relief valves, okay? So we've just got a little message at the top right just then saying our water gauge is clogged, so we'll go ahead and clear those out. And we're just going to make some slight tweaks to our exhaust injector here. Exhaust injector, sorry, can stay on basically all the time, alright? And it does a dandy job of feeding the boiler. So yeah, you can see there the relief valves are still blowing off, even though they're not blowing off constantly, so we're not doing too bad, and we're still doing 32 miles an hour, so nice in that 30 mile an hour range, which is good. Just going along nicely here, giving our passengers hopefully a nice little view and run. Still at that 1% grade, so everything's going fine for the moment. And you can see there the color of the smoke is a very nice fine gray, which is exactly how you want it basically. You don't want it to be too dark or too light, you just want a nice gray. And just admiring this locomotive as well. Just look at all those animations, the way that the motion, the valve gear, it's just absolutely wonderful. It's just beautiful. It's a sight to behold for sure. You can see the traffic's just slightly overtaking us at the moment. We're not in any races here today though. We just want a nice consistent run without ruining the locomotive and without stalling the train or anything like that. So our smoke seems to have kind of darkened there a little bit, maybe not. I think it's still doing fine. There's a lot of different viewing angles in the cab that you can utilize, which is really cool. Lots of little angles for the firebox as well. You can poke your head out as I'm doing here as the fireman. So this is the fireman's side of the cab, and just keeping an eye out. As you can see, so here you go. You can see here our boiler pressure is starting to creep away from us. So we've actually got the auger on very slow at the moment, and you can see that from the pulsations of that gauge, that beige gauge there. So that beige needle I should say. So I'm just going to make a quick adjustment here to the exhaust injector, just to keep our boiler levels in check. But otherwise we seem to be doing pretty well for the moment. We're trundling along quite nicely. Got that 1.5% grade. And okay, so let's look at that. So the boiler pressure is actually quite good at the moment. We want it around, we don't want it any less than around 200 like I'm showing there. 200 is the lower level, and we don't want it to go too high either. So you don't want it to hit against the 270 mark either, because then your relief valves just continually go off. So I think the sweet spot is somewhere around 250 here. So it's just maintaining that juggling act really by adjusting your coal feeding settings. Okay, so this is the signal foam meter. There's a red light which indicates trouble. As you can see there, that's a test that I'm doing. And there's a yellow light down there which indicates everything is running fine and you've got a safe amount of foam in your boiler. Okay, so if you're sloshing around a lot because you're going very fast, you might get that red light. So far I've only managed to get the yellow light on. And just having a look here at our speed, 26 miles an hour. So yeah, the foam meter, I haven't really had much cause for concern so far in running this thing. You might see it go on a few times actually during this run. It will show a yellow indication. That's perfectly fine, okay? There's more information on that in the manual as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open up our auger or our coal feeding corkscrew because I can see that the pressure is actually trending downwards, okay? Now, the one thing I've found with this, it's very easy to kind of chase your tail on this. So you don't want to go higher than about 25 psi, as you can see there. And somewhere around 170 odd for the Stoker jet, okay? And just showing the actual jet valves there, the setting for that. Everything seems to be going fairly well. Like I said, there's no real cold piles at the moment. Normally the cold piles build up in that far right and far left corner, like I'm showing down there, or in the close corners, I guess, at the front. Sorry, the back of the firebox, which is closest to us. So we're not putting out much power now, actually. Actually, I think we're actually dropped down in speed while I've been doing all of this. So let's crank on the reverser. So the way that I drive this is, even though it looks like the throttle isn't open very far, we're actually at 100% regulator. And what we do is we just adjust the reverser to control the power output, okay? Whoops, missed that crossing here. You'll just have to bear with me, I'm going to miss a few crossings possibly in the course of this video, because I'm really just trying to explain how to run this thing, okay? So there's a lot already that's going on. Okay, I'm going to turn on our auger a little bit higher. I'm going past the 25 psi mark there because I've just noticed that our pressure is dropping a little bit still. So let's do another blowdown here. Keep on top of these gauge blowdowns. Just going to increase our exhaust a little bit there, exhaust injector. And yep, no piles. No real piles just yet. Everything's looking pretty good in the firebox. Alright, let's crank open our... We should be at 100% throttle. Oh, actually, no, I lie. It looks like our regulator wasn't at 100% that whole time. Okay, so let's crank on the power a little bit here because yeah, we've slowed right down, so can't have this. I want to keep 30 miles an hour. This is definitely not 30 miles an hour, so... Let's crank up the power. Now, we're putting a lot more demand on the boiler right now, so you'll see the cylinder back pressure has jumped up towards 15, so we're really cranking out the horsepower now. So obviously with that, when you make any large throttle settings like that, you have to consider the effect it's going to have on your boiler pressure. So you can see there the smoke is nice and grey, but we should revisit our Stoker setting in just a moment because we are really going to be dragging down our boiler pressure having that setting of cylinder back pressure. You can see there at 15. That's really going to drag our boiler pressure down. So I'm just going to crank back on the reverser a bit there. Alright, so back towards us to reduce the amount of torque. Just keep it around less than 15 basically. And yep, okay, so our regulator is currently 100%. You don't have to pull the regulator all the way back. It will actually hit 100% before you pull it all the way back. And like I said, once the regulator is at 100, just use the reverser for most of the run to actually manage your power output. Okay, so we're at 26 miles an hour, so we did drop down actually, but we are accelerating again, so we should be coming back up to 30 miles an hour shortly. Again, keep an eye on your boiler pressure gauge. Always keep an eye on your boiler pressure gauge. But more so than that, obviously watch your water gauges too, because you don't want to run out of water. So we can see here, if I just do a quick little blow down, just to get a good reading here. Yeah, we can see the water, because we're accelerating now, I'm just going to blow down that column as well. Yeah, our boiler pressure is starting to drop actually, so we're gonna have to hop on over and change our auger setting. So we are actually quite high on the auger already, so you don't want to crank it open too much more than this. It shouldn't, yeah, you shouldn't really need to, but yeah, we'll do it anyway. We'll take it to around 40, and yeah, we'll just give it a moment, and then our boiler pressure should actually recover pretty soon. Okay, but you want to be on top of this. You want to be on top of your coal firing and your stoker settings, because if you watch your boiler pressure drop, it will drop quite fast, okay, and it can get away from you. Look at the wonderful amount of detail on this thing. It's just absolutely breathtaking. Every time I drive this locomotive, I find something new in the detail and the 3D model and just how it looks. It's a sight to behold, really. I really couldn't think of a better simulation for these massive articulated locomotives for Train Simulator at this point in time. Just the fact that you can fire the firebox manually and with all that level of detail. Okay, so let's just get back to reality here. Our boiler pressure is coming down, so we've got a little bit of an issue here. What we can do now is we can pull back on our reverser, okay, because we're putting out a lot of power. We might even be wasting a bit of power, so we don't want to really damage our boiler pressure too much more than this. So let's just take some preemptive action here, because we can see we've hit 30 miles an hour anyway, so we don't want to accelerate any further than this really. So we'll just pull back on the reverser, and hopefully this will conserve a bit of our boiler pressure. We can see the coal still relentlessly being flung into the firebox there. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show this little performance report, because this will give you a better indication as to the amount of coal unevenness that you've got, okay? And you can see here the numbers are pretty even if you pause the video and just check this out. The overall coal bed unevenness is 77 pounds, which is absolutely great, I think. As long as it's less than 500, you should be fine, okay? Even if it's over 500, I haven't, in my experience, had much issue there. And here are the valve settings I used. Once again, haven't really changed those, and you can see the unevenness value is rising a bit there. It's up to 94 now. It was 77. So what we can do here is we can open up some of these jets a little bit more, okay? But yeah, you have to kind of find a little bit of an art to setting these stoker jets, okay? You can't all just open them the same way, because like I said, different jets have a different role. They need to shoot the coal a different distance, okay? And it looks like we've got a safe foam indication there, or we just did at least. Or actually no, that's our that's our steam relief valve going off, because we've actually overfired this thing. So that's, you see how you can chase your tail? If you make the adjustments that are too large, then you'll end up turning it down, then you'll find it's too far down, then you got to turn it up, you turn it up too high, then it's too high, turn it down too low. So you really got to find a sweet spot there for this thing. Okay, so we're tracking along nicely, 29 miles an hour, so we just increased the reverser slightly just to get us up a little bit. What I want to do as well is I'm increasing the reverser just to try and stop that excess pressure in the boiler a bit. I want to kind of try and bleed off that excess pressure a bit. So if that means we go a bit faster, then so be it. But see, this is what happens when you don't manage your firing properly. You get that incessant hissing sound, okay? And that's what you don't want. So apologies for that. Let's just go ahead and close up our corkscrew, our auger. Just turn it right down, okay? And we're still bouncing off that relief valve, so just make sure this is closed all the way. Okay, so we're not pumping any more coal in. The stoker jet's still open, but it's not doing anything because the auger, which is that beige valve, needle, is fully at 0. Okay, so okay, you can see that the coal bed unevenness, that's actually dropped a little bit back again, down to 85. It did go to 90 odd, I think, just then, just before. I think we are starting to see a bit of a pile building up in the, I can never get this right, it's the back, okay, that's the back corner, okay, the closest to us. Because the jets are sitting at the back, those jets that shoot to the back corners, you must not turn those valves on at all, or just keep them at the default setting there. So anyway, just look at the valve setting I got, and I think you can't go too far wrong. So our pressure should start to come back down now, because we've got quite a bit of horsepower on at the moment, on demand, from our boiler, and the boiler is going to start to feel the effects of that now, because we're not firing any coal whatsoever for the moment. Alright, I just want to show this live injector as well. In addition to the exhaust one, you can turn on that red valve and basically pull this driver's lever here back to the prime position, pause, and then just pull it all the way back if you want live steam or water injection. But the exhaust injector there, like I just showed, is more than enough in most cases. Ooh, okay, hang on. We've got a real issue here. Our water is way too low, so let's go ahead and turn this right up to 10, because I think our boiler is running a little bit low here, and with this simulation, if you run the water too low, it will end the scenario, okay? So, got to keep that in mind. You can't afford to relax with this thing. Yep, I let that slip, and you can see here I'm letting the boiler pressure slip as well, so guess what? Got to come back here and turn on our auger once again, our stoker. So let's just go ahead and turn up the stoker a bit. We'll aim for around the 20 odd PSI mark. Okay, 20 to 25. We want to keep the boiler pressure, like I said, around the 250 PSI mark there. We don't want it too high, we don't want it too low. This thing is just absolute joy to run, as you can see. If you enjoy monitoring these systems and just making sure that everything's running fine, I think you'll get a lot out of this simulation. So definitely something to pick up if you haven't purchased this already, I think, for that reason. Okay, so just pulling back a little bit on the reverser, because I want to try and recover some of this boiler pressure. It is dropping, and we're at 27 miles an hour actually, but it sounds like we're slowing down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the auger once again, and you can see I've turned it up to 25, and so we should start to recover a bit more pressure there. I think the key here is to make very fine adjustments of the stoker operating valve, because if you make adjustments that are too large, you'll find that your pressure just ends up all over the place. You end up with too much steam, not enough steam, you'll just be all over the shop. So I kind of am a little bit all over the shop already, I must say, with this, but so far we haven't been blowing off the relief valves too much, so I think I've been doing okay so far, if I can say so myself. Just crank down the stoker valve just slightly, because the pressure is increasing, although I can hear the locomotive slowing down as well. So just listen to that crunching sound. You can hear it if you've got headphones on. You can hear the sounds of the auger. Okay, so we're at 280 now, and we can see our unevenness is slightly worse, but it's not too bad still. You want to try and keep that firebox coal distribution as even as possible. And I just love the sound of that auger in the background. It's just that little engine just running and grinding away. Okay, we're putting out quite a bit of power now. We're up to about 14 on the back pressure gauge, because I know that our steam pressure is coming back with a vengeance once again. So I'm just going to crank up the power demand a bit more, so that hopefully we don't blow off our steam relief valve. We probably will end up doing that anyway in just a second, but anyway. We do our best and take the measures that we can to avoid these undesirable running conditions. So So I've cranked it right up. Yep, and you can see the boiler pressure is responding by coming back down. So you can see our augers at about 25%. Just going to go ahead and close that up slightly. So once again, it's just another balancing act, really. Balancing act with the stoker and a balancing act with the injector as well to make sure that your water levels are maintained in the boiler. Obviously this is the fireman's duty normally, and I must say with this simulation Smokebox has allowed an AI fireman as well as an AI driver, so maybe for a future video I'll turn on the AI driver and just fire manually and see how that goes, because I'm sure the AI drivers gonna want to turn up the throttle and get this thing moving as well. So water level's looking good there, so everything's nice and dandy there. Got a nice straight section of track ahead of us. So all good there. See, we're putting out quite a bit of horsepower here, and we're just maintaining our speed, so we're definitely on an incline. And I love running this locomotive on inclines. That's where the most work happens. No fun running it on a downhill stretch. Who wants to do that? Yep, you can see our boiler pressure is getting eaten into once again. And I think I can start to see that pile building up, unfortunately, at the back of the firebox. So that's a bit of a shame, but oh well, we'll do what we can there. Just turn up our stoker a little bit more. Like I said, you don't want that to be higher than about 25 to 50 psi. I think up to 25 psi is normal according to the manual. But if you find that you're carrying, like if you're hauling a huge long train and you're going up a hill, you'll probably have to turn up that stoker to probably 50 or more, I'd say. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Yeah, you can see the piles building up there at the back of the firebox, but anyway, I think the rest of the firebox actually looks pretty level, so that's good. Just make some minor adjustments there to the auger. So yeah, that's looking good. You can see I haven't really had to touch the stoker jet. That red needle is mostly, that does respond to your boiler pressure. So if you find that that's off the chart, like off like 200 psi or something, you can probably bring that down a bit. The other thing as well, which I haven't yet shown or seen yet, in this video at least, is your stoker can actually jam, and when that happens, you will get a warning. Oh, there you go, there's the yellow light for the foam. So we've got safe foam at the moment, so let's just go ahead and dial back on the injector. Because we've got quite a bit of water going on here, and I don't want to. Yeah, I don't. It's really. It's pretty much. It's quite full at the moment, our boiler. So yeah, we want to dial back on that injector. Boiler pressure's coming down a bit there, and I feel like the locomotive's slowing down as well based off the tempo, the sound of the chuff chuff. So we're going to go ahead and open up our stoker a bit to about 25 psi there, and you can see our red needle's nice and happy at around 170 odd. Our boiler gauge, we'll see how we go. So really it's just a balancing act anyway, so she is a beauty. I love these drive-by views as well. You really get to see just how much of a beast this thing is running along the tracks like this. 200 odd tons without the tender. I love the sound effects, just the visuals, the sound effects that Smokebox has done with this thing. You really couldn't really hope for anything more, really. The only thing I've noticed is with the water gauges, when they get clogged, you do get a warning, and if the stoker jams up, you do get a warning as well on the on-screen prompt. So I've actually asked Smokebox whether we can disable those, so maybe that might be a possibility for the future. So it would be great to not have those warnings and then have to check everything just manually in the cab. That's my take on it, at least, but we'll see. It's still obviously a very in-depth simulation as it stands. And what I'm doing here is just eagle-eyeing the boiler pressure. Don't want to let this out of my sight at the moment because I want to see what it's doing. Yeah, we can see that it's actually rising. No, it's rising pretty fast actually, so yeah, we've got a nice distribution of coal there. I've got a bit of a pile there, like I said, in the left and right corner at the back of the firebox, but yeah, see there our water levels are in check. I haven't managed to get rid of those piles yet, but you'll see the piles probably get worse the more I drive this as well in this video. And I haven't quite figured out how to get a perfectly level firebox yet, but from what my experience has been, those piles in the back left and right corners of the firebox, they don't really affect the running too much, it seems. So you can see here our unevenness level is inching closer to 500 pounds there. So not ideal, but I mean it's still within the safe limit. Just looking at those values there, I think I'll adjust the left front and right front valves and the right side and left side valves a bit more. I'm not going to touch the right back and right front, sorry, left back. I'm not going to touch the left back and right back, I should say, valves. Nope, not going to touch them at all. Just going to leave them in that vertical position. So yeah, the left back and right back, they're the ones that pile up easily, so you don't want to open those valves, okay? Any more than they're already open, basically. Yeah, you can see there, there's a bit of a pile there. Anyway, that's fine. Do what we can. So I've just closed up the auger for the moment because our steam pressure is quite high. It's going to blow off the relief valve in a second actually, I'm sure it will. So we don't want that to happen unnecessarily, obviously. Love the whistle on this thing. You can do a quill on the whistle as well. I'm not sure offhand actually how you do that. I think it's shift space or something like that. You can see there the smoke color is just perfect. Looking real good. So no issues there. So we must be firing this thing okay after all. Conquering this Sherman Hill grade. Toot toot. Once you get the hang of manual firing this locomotive, it really is not that complex at all. The only thing there I'm concerned with at the moment, which I'm trying to improve myself, is just reducing the amount of piling I get in the left back and right back corners. But apart from that, I think we've got this thing under control for the most part. Of course, the challenge is going to be pulling some heavier trains as well, and then just seeing how that affects our auger settings and the firing and all that kind of stuff. I think the exhaust injector should keep up under high load settings as well, but we've got the live injector obviously, which is there if we need it as well. And so far in this video I have not utilized the live injector because it just has not been required. With the exhaust injector that we are using, that actually utilizes live steam if the exhaust steam pressure is too low as well, so that's pretty cool. Alright, I'm just doing my thing here, so don't mind me. I don't have to explain what I'm doing. I think you've all heard me say this quite a few times now. So just making some fine adjustments here to the stoker. based off what I'm seeing from the boiler pressure. So the boiler pressure gauge right here, that is your handbook, that is your book that you read mostly, basically. And based on what that's doing, that tells you how to take action to fire the locomotive, either at a faster rate or a slower rate. So that's more or less the best way to describe it, I think. We're actually getting closer to 200 psi there, so that's not good. So we know what we got to do here, and that is increase our auger or stoker. And just going to crank that up to 25. We should see a little bit of improvement on our boiler pressure shortly. So these changes you make, obviously, as you've seen probably in this video so far, you turn up the stoker. Obviously it's not going to make a difference to your boiler pressure straight away, but even in saying that, I think the boiler is still quite responsive to these changes. Yeah, we are actually slowing down now because our boiler pressure is suffering, so that's not good. Okay, so at the top right of the screen there it says Stoker Blocks. That's one of the warning messages I was talking about before. What that means is the auger, or the giant corkscrew, which feeds your coal. Oh, there's granite. That auger has jammed because a big lump of coal has stopped it, okay? So what we need to do is, even though there's a bit of coal still being flung in, that manifold will be emptying pretty shortly. So we'll just go ahead and clear this blockage by reversing the corkscrew momentarily and then setting it back to forward like we did there. And then you'll see it says blockage cleared at the top right of the screen. And you can see a nice unhealthy pile of coal still there in the corner there, the right corner of the firebox. It is what it is, 642 pounds of unevenness. We want less than 500, so not a big deal at the end of the day, although our boiler pressure is still coming down, so that is a big deal. So let's just go ahead and crank up our auger a little bit more. We aren't doing too badly, we are slowing down a little bit. So hopefully we'll start to gain back a little bit of boiler pressure here shortly. I've kind of let this get away from me actually. Let's just keep our stoker jet. Because our boiler pressure's come down, our stoker jet setting has changed as well. So I've just had to crank open that valve a bit more. I've got my auger set pretty high. It's around almost 40 psi I think there from what I just saw. So actually our boiler is recovering. It's just going to take another moment or two. Let those coals just get flung into there, into that smoke box, into that firebox, and yeah, look at that unholy pile of coal there in the corner, left corner as well. Just put a bit more reverser on. We're already at 100% throttle, so really we're just touching the reverser right now to get the power that we need. You can see that when you change the regulator, if the cylinder back pressure isn't changing that value, that's how you know you're at full throttle. Okay, boiler pressure is kind of coming back, I think 16 miles an hour. That's way too slow. We've pretty much halved our speed, so this is actually, it's a fair incline to climb though. So once again, I'm trying to run this thing in a conservative manner. I don't want to blow off that steam valve the whole way, and I want to be able to just get a nice comfortable speed out of it, but this is just too slow for my liking. So let's see if I can't squeeze a bit more power out of this, even with our boiler pressure as low as it is. I'm just hoping that we can accelerate this thing a bit right now. 17 miles an hour and very, very slowly climbing. Our water is looking good. Just do another gauge blow down there. Yeah, we're running too slow for my liking right now, so I'm going to try and improve that if I can. Once our boiler pressure comes back, we'll be able to accelerate even further, get back up to about 30 miles an hour. So okay, you can see there the boiler pressure is recovering, so we're over 200 now. We'll see if we can get it close to 250 and let it sit there if we can without going too much further. So we are increasing speed, slowly but steadily. It's just a matter of slowly increasing there. I just can't get enough of the visuals on this locomotive. It's just absolutely beautiful. Looking good, looking good. I'm going to go ahead and close down the auger a little bit there, the stoker. I see another warning about the water gauge being clogged. So yeah, it would be good to be able to turn those messages off so that we can, or I can discover these issues for myself. You might be asking, how do you know if the auger is jammed, like that corkscrew? Basically the beige needle there will actually increase and the sound will just drop off completely. And that's when you need to reverse it to clear the blockage. And we'll kind of turn down our auger too prematurely there, I think, because I'm just going to cut back on the throttle there, on the reverser a little bit. This really is a rather relentless hill that we're climbing right now. So we really are putting the pressure on this locomotive. I must say, it's definitely doing its best to hold this train. Although you could say that the boiler pressure is a little bit compromised at the moment as well. Just check out this injector. I'm going to turn this injector up a little bit more actually, because water level is a little bit too low for my liking still. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that water there, make sure that we don't overfill it. Okay, boiler pressure is coming back up to a healthy level again. Our auger's up quite high. You can hear it just chugging away in the background there. Actually, that sound is the sound of the locomotive itself, but yeah, the auger has a very distinct sound. When the locomotive is stopped, and hopefully when things are a bit quieter, you'll get to hear that sound. And you'll just learn to recognize that sound after a while. It's a wonderful sound. Like, just overall, the sound scheme on this locomotive is it's as good as the visuals basically, and that's what you want. Okay, we're inching back up to, well, we're getting closer to 30 miles an hour again. We're at 26 or so miles an hour, so we're recovering from that slight dip there that we had in our boiler pressure, so apologies for that one. You can see how this thing really demands your attention all of the time. Okay, even, well, especially in manual firing mode. So if you're manually driving and manually firing, you've got your work cut out for you with this locomotive. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn up this exhaust injector a little bit more, because the water level is still a little bit low there. Boiler pressure is doing okay. We're back up to around 250 now, so I'm going to close up the auger just slightly there. What you'll probably find is once you hit 250 psi, it really depends on how much throttle you're pulling at that moment, but yeah, once you hit 250 psi on the boiler, it does actually increase the rest of the way without too much effort after that. But yeah, again, that's highly variable. I can't just make a blanket statement like that. It really depends on your throttle, your reverser setting, your load settings, what kind of incline you're going up, or if you're going downhill, all that kind of stuff. So you can see here it's kind of paused around the 250 mark. I'm going to try and keep it there by just turning the auger down so that the pressure doesn't increase or decrease, okay? I'm really aiming, I feel like I've been chasing my tail for this whole video so far with the boiler pressure, so I really want to try and just keep it steady if I can, so that I don't have to touch the controls too many times, hopefully. Let's just go 10 on the injector there, because turn it up to 10, that's the maximum to inject the water the fastest we can. And hopefully not forget about it afterwards. I must say, we're actually getting closer now to the... Oh no! Disaster! I've overfilled the boiler. Alright, first thing to do is open the cylinder drains ASAP and then close up the injector. What's happened is I must have forgotten that I had my injector open too far from before. So, oopsies. Kind of cooked the chook on this one, I think. The throttle valve, so the regulator is now completely jammed. I'm hoping not to end the scenario here. This is a bit of a good little a tutorial, I guess, on what not to do, this section of it at least. So if you overfill the boiler, basically just make sure you close any water injection ASAP, open your cylinder drains or your cylinder cocks as they call them, and just keep them open. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. And it won't actually let me close this message until the boiler comes back down to safe levels again. So, alright, if we're not careful here, if we close up the drains on the cylinders too soon, what can actually happen is the scenario can end if water enters the cylinder. So I'm just being ultra careful here and ultra cautious. I can't believe this. We're almost at the end of the route. Of the hill, actually, I must say, and yeah, run into this issue. So this is what happens when you kind of get a little bit complacent for a second running this thing. So we've got too much pressure now, and we've got too much water at the same time. So it's all happening. What a way to end this run, huh? Well, at least we haven't ended the scenario. We can see there the water isn't moving, so it's still topped up way too high. In some of these locomotives there was a third water gauge that was slightly higher. I think the big boy has that actually. And that shows you if the boiler level is about to overfill, but I don't think this Challenger has that option. So yeah, for the moment I'm just in damage control here right now because I've overfilled the boiler. And if we don't take action right now to mitigate this issue, we could basically cause irreparable damage to the locomotive and end our scenario. So yeah, just bear with me. You can see we've got an unsafe level here of foam, and that looks like it's taking care of itself. So how about that? I gave you guys both the yellow and the red lights, so you can't say that I don't deliver. So how about that? We've overfilled the boiler. And we've done a few things in this scenario, in this run today, but one thing we haven't done is completely write off the locomotive or cause the scenario to end, so that's good. I'm just going to run with these cylinder drains open for a bit more until I see that water level come down on the water gauge glass. So it's just going to be a little bit annoying here for another moment or two. This is a good sort of tutorial, like I said. See, you can see there the water level hits the top still, and you don't see it come back down for a while. So that's how you know it's over full. Okay, I'm not pumping in any more coal for the moment either. Whistle. We're almost at the end now, so just another 5 minutes or so and that's it. We'll be at the end. So it looks like we should be safe to bring our water levels back in under control. We're just discharging steam from everywhere at the moment, aren't we? Not a good day when you've got steam clouds all over the place. We've got an overfull boiler right now. and we have to take action, otherwise this thing is going to pop. Okay, our foam meter is looking good. Okay, so we can see there that the gauge glass is looking a lot more healthy now. So yeah, look at that unsightly pile on the right there. There's also the same thing on the left side as well. That's actually not too bad, but yeah, I'd like to try and eliminate that coal pile, or those coal piles if I can. Almost there now, so I think we're safe to close up the drains. Yep, that water gauge glass is looking good too, so the coal's looking okay. I'm not going to pump any more coal because what I'm going to do is just turn off those cylinder drains, just close them up, because our water has come back under control again. It's not over full, the boiler's not over full anymore. We just got our steam relief valve going crazy because yeah, I was distracted by the overfull boiler and I let the coal get pumped in, I think, or it was just yeah, too much coal from before anyway. Alright, I think we've got to get ready on the brake now, so let's just close up the throttle. Watch that cylinder back pressure just drop off to nothing. 30 miles an hour. We have conquered the grade, ladies and gentlemen. And I think we haven't done too badly today. I think this is more or less the last curve. And then we'll go ahead and stop this locomotive, and we shall call it a day for today. So I really hope you enjoyed these insights into how to run this locomotive manually and just how to get the best out of it. So there it is, there's the sign that says Sherman Hill elevation limit, basically elevation peak. So we're just going to get on the brake here, and there it is there. There's the sign that we're looking for. We've reached the top of the hill. So we're just going to do a service application here, and just be careful when you apply the brakes. You don't want to overcharge the brake. So I like to go into lap fairly soon once I get the pressure I want on the brake gauges, and no warning prompt, so that's good. So we're slowing down nice and easy here. So yes, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate your patience, and I hope you enjoyed this video today. It's really been a good run. I really did enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. I hope you learned quite a lot. Hope you got some insights on how to run this thing, how to run this locomotive manually, manually fire, manually drive it. Maybe next time we'll let the AI drive and I'll try and manually fire it. That should be fun. But yes, till next time, please like, comment, share this video if you enjoyed it as well. Put a comment below if you've got any feedback on what you saw or any questions at all. I know it's a little bit complex there, especially if you're diving into it for the first time. But yes, hopefully you've had a little bit of experience with steam locomotives before you attempt to drive this beast. This is our final performance report for this locomotive. In today's run, we can see there the unevenness got up to about 1,000 pounds there, so about twice the amount basically of the recommended amount. But anyway, we made it, so that's the main thing. So yes, I shall catch you all in the next video. Cheers.